What made you get onto a raw food diet? Like, you did all these years of all this cleansing.
Yes.
And then suddenly, like, you know, you went 100% raw. Was it overnight? Was there some sort of health condition or something that brought you there, or?
Yes. Okay. Most people who get into this to this extreme, and also people like us who dedicate our lives to trying to help other people on their path, we've had our own story to get us to this point. And I have my own story, which is a little bit unique to a lot of other raw foodists, because a lot of raw foodists go into raw food to lose weight, well, for many different reasons, but maybe they have hormonal imbalance, maybe they have infertility, maybe they do have skin issues, all different things. But for me, I was basically just barreling through life, you know, thinking that I was young and invincible, and doing what I wanted. I was very physically active with sports, so I thru-hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. And then I rode my bicycle across several countries in Southeast Asia, and then I went to New Zealand and Australia, and I did much the same. And all that extreme physical sport was depleting my body of minerals and vitamins, and I didn't realize it because I was so fit on the outside. And I believe that I opened myself up to the illness that I got from pushing my body so hard and not replenishing with high mineral content, alkaline, live, you know, beautiful foods from Mother Earth. And I was cycling my bike up the east coast of Australia, and I started to get a very bad rash, very, very itchy rash. And I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was heat rash. It got worse at night. It was starting to break the skin and bleed and have pus, and it was very uncomfortable as I was trying to cycle. And at that point I cycled from Byron Bay to Cairns, so it was about 2,000 kilometers. So I was doing about 100K a day, and I was also so tired at that point that I was living off of espresso shots, what they call V-drink in Australia, which is a Red Bull, and lollies. So gummy bears, Jolly Ranchers, whatever, and I was eating those all day long, drinking my caffeine and pumping myself up the east coast of Australia. So I mean, it was inevitable that I was going to crash, and I did with this rash, and it got worse and worse, and I wound up stopping the cycling. I wound up staying in Australia for 2.5 years trying to figure out the cause of this additive. And I went to every doctor. I had allergists, I had blood work, I had EKG, I had chest x-ray, I mean, you name it, they did it. They couldn't find anything wrong with me. I finally went to an iridologist out of desperation because I have one eye which is 2 different colors. So I thought maybe this weird eye will tell us something, because nobody's able to tell me anything. And the iridologist suggested that I go on an elimination diet, which no one had told me about. 3 allergists, nobody mentioned it.
Wow.
And she started she took me off wheat and gluten first, which I had been tested for and I was not allergic. But it's the easiest thing to take out of your diet first and then see where you're at with everything else. And wheat and gluten is in so many processed and devitalized foods that just by taking that out of your diet, you're doing better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I wrote down what I ate every day, and after 9 months of doing that, I pinpointed the cause of my rash to one food additive that I'm intolerant to. So that was a shocker to me.
Wow. So it was a food additive.
Food additive, an E number.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's what was causing all these rashes.
That's what was causing all of the rashes. And I only had to eat this additive 3 or 4 times a week to be covered.
Wow, head to toe.
From head to toe, because I got more anaphylactic, I got more reactive to this additive as the 2.5 years went on. So
because it's almost like building up in your system.
Totally. Totally.
And like how with food additives, like how a lot of times they're not on the labels. Like how do you prevent ever having this?
Well, this is what led me into raw foods, because, you know, when I tell this story to my clients, you know, their first thought is, well, I don't eat McDonald's, so I don't have to worry about that. And a lot of people are tricked into thinking that these fat additives are only in fast foods. I wasn't eating McDonald's. I was eating seaweed flavored rice crackers. I was eating wasabi covered peas. I was eating veggie burgers, veggie hot dogs. I was eating oyster sauce. All of these have this additive in it, and it's called ribonucleotide, the E numbers. They are salty, savory additives, and basically what I know, because I suffered for 2.5 years, is these additives are killing us slowly. And
are they like MSG?
This particular one is very similar to MSG. It's in the same group. It's called a flavor enhancer. And it's also an excitotoxin like MSG is, but it is a different chemical compound than MSG itself. Now, MSG is known to cause more migraine headaches, insomnia, anxiety, and sometimes even uncontrollable diarrhea if you're very intolerant to MSG. But a lot of companies now know that we don't want to buy MSG in our food, so they have found other additives to put in the food because it still has no flavor. And they put in these other 3 that I'm intolerant to. It's one chemical, it's the ribonucleotide, but it's also in disodium thioanylate and disodium isoanylate. And so then they can package the item to say no MSG.
Okay, but then they have other these.
But then they add these ones instead. So it's creeping into more and more foods. And once I came to this realization of how much damage this additive did to my health, I therefore decided that I don't want to eat any additives, because what are the other ones doing? What are the colorings doing? What are the preservatives doing? And if that one did that, maybe I have other symptoms that I don't even realize, and certainly I don't want to be the experiment to find out what happens to me in 20 years if I get on these additives. So that was really what pushed me to go into raw food, because I had been thinking about it for a few years, you know, but I always made an excuse in my head. Oh, it's too hard. Oh, socially it'll be impossible. Oh, how am I going to travel on raw food? Oh, I don't have time to make juice every day. I sabotaged myself to actually start it. But I've been thinking about it for about 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
And so I look at what happened to me as a gift from the universe.
Where things got that bad. You're covered head to toe in a rash. You don't really have a choice.
I said, okay. I'll listen to you now. It's time for me to try this. And I had nothing to lose, and I thought, well, I'll give it a go and I'll see how I feel. But for me, it was such a health-related commitment, because I also wanted to make sure that everything I ate was feeding my body and my health in a positive way. After I'd been through, you know, such a low period in my life, I wanted to try to boost my body in every way I could. So I really changed the way I looked at food. And that was a big turning point for me as well, especially in the sense of not going back to, you know, especially like my childhood, you know, connector foods, you know, because everybody has something from childhood that just makes them remember the love from their mother and makes them want to eat it when they're sad or lonely or stressed. And but I also was able to separate myself from that and say, hang on, Jennifer, those foods are not going to feed your body or your health.